one for you this week. I guarantee this will coax out twice the piz and half the shiz. What I have to relate to you this time isn't for the faint of heart. Expect a shart. When it's over, take a good shower and wear some new undies. You'll smell like a Bigfoot if you don't. Her name, Jenny Holden, 23, a long-term sufferer of deep depression, like many of her time in space. Soon she would discover the reason why her mood and mind were continually plagued into heartbreaking hopelessness. Location, Kearney, New Jersey. Date, June 2020. Unspectacularly average. Unceasingly common, undeniably universal. Depression in the modern world hits so many people that are quite excellent at whining about it across the internet. It has become a favorable crutch for many, not to belittle the problem, but while a niggling annoyance for the sufferer, it is so ever-present that it can't rightfully be used as a badge of victimization or crippled honor or respect. And even worse, no one seems to understand what causes it. Chemical imbalance, diet, lack of freedoms, demonic oppression? No, it couldn't be that, surely. Expectations clashing with reality? A major mystery for all. The drug trade on both sides of the legal market own huge stock in the cure. Pharma delivers magic pills or recreational escapist thrills to knock the blighted condition on its ass for a while. And then it re-emerges again and again and again, while the medicinal participant sabotages their body's inner workings for a moment's respite from cranial torments. Oh, I knew it all too well myself. Been there, done that one, Milano. A wonderful leech of a predicament, as you go round and round searching for that elation or regulation, and then it spears through your cortex once more to say, "Heidi-ho, mofo!" And the calliope starts up as the merry-go-round begins that circular journey once more. Jenny Holden didn't get on to ride. She had a ticket to ride, but refused to get on board for the old round and round of drug therapy and momentary relief from loads of cash, until it all came around again and again and again. Jenny had determined herself to avoid the pitfalls and face the harsh realities of depression without flinching or giving in to suicide or abandonment of a normal life. And so she did, and so she succeeded, except that poor Jenny had spent 7 years of her life inwardly beating back that devil, and it outwardly made her look spacey, detached from everything around her. She utilized her mind to do anything that could run circles around the intrusive illness and keep it off guard while she calculated difficult maths, worked out huge written essays on any banal topic she could instantly produce, or attempted to memorize texts she had in front of her at the moment. Advertisements, magazines, pamphlets, or websites, whatever. However, she was certain of one impediment that came with depression. Jenny realized she had no ideas. There was no originality or spark of individuality within her. She labored to try to come up with conjoining ideas or conclusive opinions to anything that she could claim were her own unique view on life. And the moment she was there, and the idea had arrived, it was instantly whisked away from her by that bedeviled depressive state, arriving to eat up her creativity. And while it was slightly daunting to be a mere wallflower without any defining personality, Jenny wasn't too upset by the fact that she could fade into the background and rally her energies to slog away at the assailant that was her mental disease. Until one day when her mind began rebelling against her efforts and thwarting her by talking back to her. That was the moment that Jenny knew that she was going into uncharted and fearful territory. Her depression would mentally talk to her, the words sometimes seemingly so real and audible that she would have to be careful to discern the voice from people around her. She had to keep the secret. No one could know that she was insane. Jenny didn't want to pay for endless rounds of perilous and obtuse drugs, nor meet repetitively with boring medical professionals, all slavering over her insurance plans with an eye to raping mindless providers. And she didn't want a record, nor a stigma, nor pity, nor anything that came with the label of schizophrenic or clinically insane. So sad, Jenny Holden endured and coped once more with an even heavier burden. The voice would appear after the depression snatched away her ideas. It growled in a comfortably warm manner reminiscent of a cat's purr, and just like a cat, it put her in its place. That impious voice would tell her she was too fat, too thin, too stupid, too awkward. It told her that she hadn't achieved anything and was a failure. And when she began to form creative ideologies, she could hear it munch down on those delicious ideas as it snatched them from her and dined on her creative processes. Then it would laugh at her lost thoughts and taunt her for thinking them. When alone, undeniably alone and without constant surveillance or eavesdroppers, Jenny would talk back to her voice inside her head, and conversations would ensue. Angry and pointed conversations between a girl and her mind. Round and round they went, on a carousel of banal debate techniques, usually ending in ad hominem attacks and idiotic abuse. As usual, one conclusion was certain and well stated between the girl and her irrepressible brain. She wanted it dead, and it wanted her dead. On that they could agree. So it was battle on, and all engines go. Jenny was unfortunately taxed in that battle. Every time she had a good idea on how to croak that idiotic voice within her, the beast would just snatch her deliciously ingenious thoughts and gobble them up in earshot. Luckily, the voice was equally frustrated, because he could do little more than thrash around inside her mind and tell her to die, or shoot herself, etc. It would try to draw her toward firearms and poisons by lifting influence whenever she was looking at anything relating to guns or Drano. The tactic was too blunt. Jenny grasped the stratagem quickly, and she knew she was in danger when the depression abated. She knew she was getting somewhere when the depression grew deeper. And though the triggers were vague to the girl, she found the depression would at times get so white-hot and tense in her mind that it would cripple her where she stood. It was so doggedly horrid that the fragile female, with a will of tempered steel, burnt through the flames of mental torment, would fold up and close her eyes when these daggers of depression hit hard. And then an idea. She should look around. Gobble, gobble. The idea was eaten up by her opponent. But she remembered it. The idea was so simple that she couldn't avoid remembering the brilliant clarity it provided. Sadly, Jenny wasn't perceptive after years of being inward. It would take dozens of these heightened assaults before she could understand what was causing the upset. It was the sight of a church. When her eyes settled on or recognized a house of Christian worship, Jenny was besieged. Something about active churches were of distinct worry to the interloper in her head. And when that moment came, and she was aligned with a church in sight, and the depression hit, searing her inwardly, and she collapsed, yet recognized the cause of the encroachment. Jenny struggled to walk forward, to the doors, and into the edifice. The fire in her skull hit harder. She collapsed to her knees, palms on the floor, her breathing heavy, labored, heaving. She struggled forward up the aisle to the altar. Slowly. "Now!" cried out the impish voice inside her mind. She had him, and then she was growing tired, weakened, unable to move. Every moment, every movement, a Herculean struggle for supremacy over her own mind and body. It was only her soul that had any ability anymore, and her ethereal essence was incomplete, but slighted control of her situation now. The flesh, the world, was foreign to her need to conclude the battle of her life, and she vowed to be victorious above the invader she suffered so long. That was when the burning of her depression grew so intense that her veins throbbed, her breath uncoupled into irregularity, and pressure built within her cranium until it felt like bone and epidermis was splitting, and blood was trickling down into her eyes. And lo, it was indeed. Jenny was wiping blood from her eyes as it rolled from her forehead. Probing with her digits escalated her horror as she could feel her brain opening up to light and air, her head folding back in the center while something desperately wiggled to free itself from the folds of her cerebrum. It was like a birth of something vulgar and singular, never before seen. She feared her life was ending. Her head would be destroyed as it would ripped in twain. Jenny's line of sight, her body collapsed on the floor, saw tiny legs step from her brain. They were pale and veiny. Disgusting! Blood and clear fluids dripped off of this naked thing. A moment of relief came over the poor girl as she felt her head healing and closing back up. Jenny lashed out with a hand to strangle the weird creature, but it backed up quickly toward the door of the church and turned in anger to its host. The face of this little thing. It was round and with beady black eyes, slightly human but awkwardly unusual. It was a prototype, or a demonic caricature of a person, or a baby. It was like a large zygote's face. Its mouth opened wide to display piranha-like teeth, long and sharp. "Bitch!" It roared at her with a slightly piccolo voice. "What are you?" Jenny asked, true anger in her eyes. She felt no empathy for this birth creation before her. She knew it wasn't of her, yet she would be proved wrong. "I'm every unique idea you ever had," the little gremlin explained. "Every impure thought sparked from creative desire. Every lonely evil you conjured within. And every stupidly misguided intellectual ponderance." As Jenny watched it, the creature seemed to be having trouble maintaining footing. It was slowly sliding away from the altar and towards the doors, out of the church. "I'll kill you," her newborn enemy announced. "I'll kill you!" It launched against the stream of an unseen power, propelling it away from Jenny, opening its maw to chomp down on her flesh in revenge. Yet no, it was stopped, sinking teeth into something distasteful and unwanted. Jenny had grabbed a Bible from a nearby pew and blocked the bellicose brute, inserting the Bible into gaping teeth. The freak recoiled, releasing the book and tumbling backwards, an invisible wind navigating it to the doors. Jenny stood up and ran after it, trying to kick it to death with her stylish boots. No good. It was flung out into the sidewalk or street. Jenny took a moment to examine herself in the reflection of the baptismal font. The sparkling water related back to her, an image miraculous. Her wound of birth was healed. Her face was alive with vigor and beauty she never recognized before. Her hair lush and lively, unlike when it was straggly and limp during episodes of mental torment. No rings under her eyes. They sparkled like the water reflecting the many points of light above and around her in that holy home. Ideas came into her mind and stuck. She found her mind afire with her own intrinsic thoughts and creative imperatives again. 7 years of her inner life, sucked away from her, were now returned. Jenny could think and conclude and even have absurdist or logical end results to her thought processes. Oh, glorious new day! She was cognizant once more of her own powers of deduction and invention. Years of Bobdinanian battle produced a worthy individual. Thus arrived instantly the idea of finishing this deadly game. One hand grasping a Bible, the other cupping holy water in a fist, she burst from the church to stand proud and examine the busy crossing before her in Kearney. The trail of fluids left by her unintended bastard prodigy was stretched east, but faded fast. No sign of the diminutive demon. However, another woman, similar in previous attitude to Jenny, was collapsing to her knees nearby that church. The lady put her free hand up to her head and sobbed lightly. Jenny knew what was transpiring. She felt empowered. Jenny was now a warrior princess, grown knowledgeable in battle. But the battle wasn't over, and she was ready to lock swords with the enemy and kick him in the nuts. Jenny swung broadly round with her right and smacked the sagging woman on the back of the head with her Bible. And then again, and again. And suddenly, the woman's head split open in front, and another identical creature flopped from the cranium of the stranger and toppled over on the sidewalk before them. This birth also turned to the woman and snarled in abject fury to get splashed by the remaining drops of holy water on Jenny's fisted left hand. The droplets burned and sizzled on the pale flesh of the newborn urchin, and it ran in fear from the pair. As the woman's head resealed, Jenny ran after the little creature, hoping to track it to hers and destroy them both. The war was now on, and Jenny wanted to exterminate what desired to chase her life from within and without. Though ultimately, this was a battle of humanity as a whole. As we shall see, XJ7, when this tale is soon to be continued. No, seriously, I'm not joking.
Like and subscribe before I die. And ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can say.
Depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a